Walt, it was another big week in the autonomy markets. Waymo exclusively launched on Uber in Austin, and they're even having a party catered by Terry Blacks on Monday. What do you think?
Well, who is this Terry Blacks? Is this some famous caterer that I'm unfamiliar with?
Walt, if we were on the Food Channel, you'd be escorted out of the building right now.
Really?
Some people will even say to you it's the best barbecue in Austin. I tried to eat at Terry Blacks, but there was a problem. My buddies Chad and Lee and I, we ordered a cruise, and we're with the rideshare guy, Harry, who now he decides to have a newsletter to compete. Not nice, Harry. But I digress on that point. So we order a cruise, and you go to Disney World, and you go to Disneyland, and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. It's going over the lanes. It's not taking a left turn, only taking a right turn. Turns out we went to Blacks, not Terry Blacks. And Terry Blacks and Blacks, they don't get along. Walt, it must have been a sign, because lo and behold, a few months later, cruise shut down.
I am so confused. This story was all over the place, but I think basically what you were saying was there's Ray's Famous Pizza, and then there's Ray's Famous Pizza, and then there's Ray's Famous Pizza. But aside from that, I guess my question is, since Terry Blacks is famous, you down where you live, you have Joe's Stone Crabs. I guess it's not exactly where you live, but if you had to wait in line for a Terry Blacks versus Joe's Stone Crabs, which would you choose?
Neither. I'd Uber Eats it.
Okay, then.
Walt, that's when you get old. You don't wait in line for things. But I digress. And when you get old, you get crotchety. And I'm not crotchety on this one, but I'm a little crotchety. With Uber and Waymo in Austin, there's no tier. I can't select I want to ride in a Waymo. I get a smoked out vehicle or I can get a Waymo. I don't know. And to increase my odds, I have to go into the settings. What are those? In the Uber app, it's selected I like to be paired. But there's no guarantee I'll get it. There's a massive inconsistency in the product.
This will be an interesting thing to see how they do it. I don't know why they would do this and maybe make the Waymo experience not good. It feels like if you're Uber, you want Waymo to pick markets where they're using your app as opposed to markets where they're not. So you want to drive usage there and show them how you can drive usage there, because it is clearly an existential threat to the company. So it's kind of odd that they would do it. Maybe the theory is there's just so few cars initially that they're just going to match them as best they can. And it's going to be to make sure that the consumer is happy that those wait times are short. But what if like in Uber's mind, that 5-minute wait time is what they need for Waymo, but for a Waymo customer who's probably willing to wait 8 or 9 more minutes, for the consistency, the cleanliness, the safety of their autonomous vehicle, or just the fact that they want to try an autonomous car. They see it going by and they want to try it. You're right. I don't think you want to have to figure out how to go into settings to be able to do that.
It devalues the product. Waymo, as we've talked about on multiple podcasts, is a premium product. Listen, if I've got to wait 10 minutes, I can go in the bar and have another drink because I'm not driving. I have no problem with that. I want a consistent product, and I want a luxury product, and that's what Waymo is. Consistent luxury product. To me, it's degrading the overall Waymo experience, the way that Uber has set this up. It fundamentally creates zero value.
I don't know if I wouldn't say that it creates zero value. I think we're just going to have to see how it is. I mean, just like everything. I mean, I say this I literally said this on the Light Shed podcast earlier today. It's kind of like when I'm a little skeptical about something, I'll just phrase it as, well, I can't wait to try it. So maybe you and I have to set up a road trip. We'll go to Austin. We'll check out this barbecue that you speak of. Hop in we'll get it in takeout bags and hop in a Waymo if we can figure out how to change the settings, and check it out there. That's the best way for us to do it, or at least check out how the app works. We do have plenty of friends in Austin, though, that I'm sure will report back on their experience and how it works with the Uber app.
We'll rig up a bunch of GoPros, we'll eat some Terry Black in the car, and I'll record something and truly see what happens. But if you look at this from a Waymo product perspective, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, all consistent product. Waymo could have easily made a request in the deal terms to have like an Uber X tier to have a Waymo tier in the app. Why did the product team, do you think, not push that?
I don't know. And I think this is a good opportunity to test. There's going to be other markets when they are going to, or where they will test it. But when do you think, I mean, it seems like this is a pretty important topic to you, having a Waymo tier. I don't necessarily disagree. I think I probably understand a little bit more in terms of maybe it's just a quantity of cars in the market. But let's put all that aside. We love to make predictions here on Autonomy Markets. Grayson, when do you think we're going to get a Waymo tier inside the Uber app in Austin or any of these places where, where they're going to partner?
Within 12 months, because the consumer is going to demand it. And when I say that, I did a podcast with Lyft, which is coming out in a few weeks. Lyft said if Waymo was to operate there, that they would be open to that. So if Lyft said it publicly on the Road to Autonomy podcast to be open to it, to me, there's no reason why Uber shouldn't do it.
What are you saying? You're saying that if Uber doesn't, you're saying that Lyft, in their potential future partnerships with Waymo or whatever autonomy tech company that they're referring to, is open to having a specifically a tier, just like you have UberX and business or whatever, extra large, whatever they're different name. You go to a different market, they call them different things. As a matter of fact, when I switched from my personal to my business, they call cars different things that are effectively the same. Anyway, your point is Lyft is open for business. They want to do that.
Yes. Jeremy Bird, EVP of Rider Experience, came on the Road to Autonomy podcast, and he publicly stated that. Mr. Bird also publicly stated that Lyft is meeting with all the AV companies on a regular basis, and that does include Waymo. So we have confirmation on the record, and they are open to it. So if I'm Uber and you're based this on demand and data, I think it's time for that tier. So I would say within 12 months, but if I were in Dara Khosrowshaki's shoes, I would accelerate it because competition's on the horizon.
So these are comments that are coming out in a yet to be released podcast from the Road to Autonomy, correct?
That's correct. Giving you a sneak peek here.
You're doing little teasers there. So do I dare ask if you said, well, what's the holdup with Waymo? Were you so bold as to push on that one a little bit and saying like, what's taking so long to, I guess it's not too long to, I guess, re-engage from the prior relationship that they had in Phoenix?
I had a very polite conversation with Mr. Bird, and you're going to have to tune into the Road to Autonomy podcast in a few weeks to find out what Mr. Bird says.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. And I want that consistent product. We have experimentation. Uber, I can't figure out what they're experimenting. They seem to be experimenting with everybody in fleet management. They're experimenting. They have Move. Then apparently they have a deal with another company. What's going on with Uber's fleet management? Who's managing the Austin fleet?
The Austin fleet is getting managed by Move, but this is not to be confused with the Move that they're using or they plan to use in Miami. What's the difference? One is from Nigeria. That's the Miami one. And the one that will be helping them in Austin is based out of Spain. Both companies, Uber owns a stake in. Uber owns 18% of the Nigerian Move, and I think Mubadala is in there as well. But for the one that I think is more interesting, this one that they're going to be going, launching with in Austin, Uber originally got involved with them back in 2021. They were, the company was kind of on its ass after the pandemic. Uber steps in with a credit line. They got a third of the board seats. Then they came back again in 2024. They put in another $100 million. So they put several $100 million into this company, have a 30% stake. This company is probably, pushing on being a unicorn, sometime soon. For our non kind of, whatever listeners, that means $1 billion in terms of valuation. I think the last round was like in the 750s, 760, something like that. They operate obviously in Spain, France, Italy, and Netherlands. And they also partner with BYD in terms of, customer products. So anyway, they have a new brand. It's called Avomo that they're using, rather than Move. We still need to do a little bit more work on them. In the process of doing that, want to understand exactly how much of what I would call the stack of fleet management they're actually going to do in terms of cleaning and refueling and maintenance, and how distributed the depots are going to be, and are they going to lease the land, are they going to buy the land, and really ultimately, like, what is the long-term play here? Because Uber continues to push this concept, even while throwing hundreds of millions of dollars around, that they're going to keep this stuff separate and that this is not going to be pulled in. So, there's a lot, I think, to learn there. And I think, again, as we've highlighted here on Autonomy Markets, I think it's an important element to the autonomy story and how it's going to play out.
It's an important element. You're going to need fleet management. Lyft has Flexdrive. How does this compare to Flexdrive?
I mean, I think it's going to be more than what Flexdrive does. Flexdrive, at its root is not doing the day-to-day fleet management and maintenance of those cars. Like, those drivers are leasing those cars. They're not coming into Flexdrive, owned by Lyft, and getting their car cleaned or refueled or whatever. They're going to lease it for a week, and then it'll come back, and there'll be some maintenance of it. There'll be some tracking of what the residual value of there. So there might be some value, I think, maybe to, let's say, a private equity guy that wants to own those cars in terms of what that system has. But I think it really needs to do a lot more. Again, another company that hopefully we can spend more time on. The guy that was running it is now running autonomy at Lyft. So there's effectively new management in there. I don't even know if they, how deep they want to get. Like, do you want to have, like, if you went to the Flexdrive website, it's like, it looks like it's one depot in one location, maybe tied to rental car companies. So I think they had a deal with, I believe it was Hertz, as opposed to how you and I have kind of believed this market's going to evolve, which is, smaller pieces, smaller depots in more locations closer to the end demand, which is ultimately what I think autonomy needs. So more work to do on Flexdrive, but I think to answer your question more succinctly, I think they're doing a lot less than what Move, now being called Avomo, is planning on offering, I guess, initially in Austin. And I suspect, given that valuation and the amount of money Uber's dumping into them, we'll probably see them pop up in more and more markets across the U.S.
But is there really that much money to be made in fleet management that justifies these valuations?
Well, I mean, look, it's not just autonomy, but I don't know. We have to understand the unit economics. But yes, the valuation is going to be based on your cost relative to what you're charging for those costs. And I think strategic value is going to reside in getting physical locations that again are close to where the end market demand is, that has the power that's required, because everyone, I guess, wants EV cars doing it, get these things clean quickly and back out on the road. Just keep in mind, Grayson, that if you look at the bookings of an Uber and Lyft and the margin that they're generating, we're talking low single digits, like mid-single digit. This is not a high margin business. There's plenty of ways to make money in this ecosystem and not have to have 20, 30% margins like we do throughout the rest of the tech world that we cover.
Fastest way to make margins in ride sharing in LA, eliminate the insurance requirement. Your margin goes up by 42%, but that's the LA. When you're looking at markets where this all operates, so obviously Waymo is now in Austin. With Uber, we had more drone footage this time during the day in Arizona of the Jaguar I-Paces. I'm trying to understand, what is Waymo's long-term plan for these Jaguar I-Paces? The drone footage clearly showed thousands. Austin is putting in the Jaguar I-Paces. We know the Hyundais are not coming online until 26. Zeekrs, we have no idea. What do you think Waymo's plans are for these Jaguars? And I say that because these vehicles have been discontinued.
Grayson, when I listen to these very fancy commercials, they say Jaguar. And I've always pronounced it Jaguar or Jag. Now, you're saying Jaguar? Is that how you pronounce it? Is this a Florida? I know there's probably a lot more Jags in Florida than there are up here. Is that the proper pronunciation, Jaguar?
I have no idea. Sounds cool.
But to get back to your question, I'm kind of worried that every week we get new drone footage of the same multiple thousand Jaguars that are sitting in this lot. Like, why are they not moving? Why? Because I don't think they're making any more. So I would assume that Waymo's gotten what they're going to get. I don't think that the number of cars is significantly increased in California. Could be wrong. Maybe they're shipping them to Austin to get them ready. But like, are they missing a part? Is there a supply chain issue? This kind of reminds me back of like COVID days when they'd had those ships that are backed up in LA. What is going on, with this depot, and why aren't these Waymo cars getting outfitted more quickly?
They're going as fast as they can. I'm hearing from bankers that cover traditional auto sector that Waymo is going around dealer by dealer and buying these vehicles as much as they can in bulk at a heavy discount. Perhaps buying these at these massive discounts. I've heard up to 30, sometimes 40% discount to some of these dealers. Waymo's getting the unit economics better. Perhaps that could be what they're doing.
I don't know, man. I mean, let's see some drone footage of new cars coming in or new cars going out. It kind of reminds me when the short sellers were attacking Tesla and like taking pictures of all the Teslas parked in parking garages. I don't know if any of this actually is really true or not. So maybe we should just ignore the drone footage. Thanks for posting it, but maybe we don't really care about it. I'm kind of more curious about footage of something that I guess you claim was confirmed by Waymo, that Zeekr without a camouflage was spotted in Mountain View with manual controls. What do you mean by manual controls? Meaning like a steering wheel?
There was a steering wheel, and yes, it was confirmed by Waymo on X. It's public there because I asked, and the Waymo source responded, who's publicly associated with Waymo, did confirm it. Perhaps manual controls, steering wheel, and that means there's pedals. That's for regulatory environment, but it was out camouflage. So the question is, Waymo seems to be going full steam ahead with the Zeekr. Leave the politics aside. There's a thing called tariffs, and they're ramping up. The White House, one day we have them, one day we don't have them. Don't forget, April 1st is Fool's Day. Can't do it that day. April 2nd. So we don't know what we're getting.
So when they say camouflage, what does that mean? Did they just take like a Cybertruck, the shell of a Cybertruck, and like put it over the top of it? How do you camouflage something that looks like the Zeekr with those, as we previously discussed on Autonomy Markets, those gigantic sensors that they have strapped onto that thing? How was that camouflage?
It's going back to you go to an army supply depot. You buy a bunch of camouflage. You put it on there.
So you're actually saying like in camo? Come on.
Yeah, dead serious. It's full blown camo.
So even though you're driving through LA with the city and the beach and the palm trees, but they've got like green and tan and like actual camo on this thing. Okay. Each his own.
They don't do a very good job masking it. If you know body style, you can figure out what it does.
I don't think there's any way of camouflaging that monstrosity of a vehicle. Let's just put it that way.
I'll tell you how you do it. You know how you do it? You just make an oversized version of the Zooks vehicle and call it a supersized toaster. That's how you do it.
Again, not going to be camouflage because it's going to be pretty evident when that thing's going down the street. People are going to take pictures of it, post it, and whatever.
Exactly. People do all sorts of things. People talk a lot too. And sometimes people chat for the wrong reasons. Sometimes they say the right things. Some say they say the wrong things. But the one piece of chatter that never dissipates is, what is Alphabet going to do with Waymo? Are they going to spin it out? Are they continue to fund it? Are they going to shut it down? And this week at an investor conference, Alphabet's CFO said something to give some clarity to that. And I'm going to quote Alphabet's CFO here, and quote, "Growth is about making choices and strategy is about making choices. So we're making choices within other bets as well. And we see an opportunity that goes back to, by the way, the comment on how do you scale quickly. That's Waymo was one of my areas of that's where we need to invest. We have tremendous opportunity here. Phenomenally autonomous vehicles that can be used in a variety of ways. So scaling that up rapidly, getting to more markets, getting more vehicles is critical. So it looks like we're investing the same level every year, but we're investing more in Waymo and we're pivoting from some other things." Later, she goes on to say, and quote, "I do think Waymo is really, really interesting opportunity. I read the full transcript, Walt. It appears that Alphabet is putting Waymo into high gear and they view it as a viable part of Alphabet's future." What do you think?
So she's channeling her inner Grayson by saying, really, really interesting. That things could get very interesting. My response is like, no shit. I mean, obviously, this is huge for Google. It's been talked about on their earnings calls. Sorry for the other projects that are within those other bets there. I don't know if Google Fiber's in there. I still don't understand why Google Fiber hasn't been sold. It's bizarre. Like the Loon thing was there before where they were going to provide internet from, I don't know whether it was planes or balloons. I mean, I've seen it all over the years. So, but obviously not surprising that they're allocating more dollars there. So good for them. I mean, at some point, you allocate down so much, you have to actually increase. Or on the flip side, Waymo gets to a point where their cash burn goes down or otherwise get closer to positive profit. That's not going to happen based on those Jaguars that they are outfitting. Too expensive. Obviously, they need to get to the next step. They need to get to the Hyundais or maybe even something beyond that.
As regards to the CFO, she wants to channel me. She's got to start wearing pink polos and pop her collar. Then you know she's channeling me. She can give me a call anytime she wants. I'd love to talk Waymo. We get some more details on Waymo. And I will state for the record, Walt.
Do you think she would wear one of those new hats that you're debating whether to put out on the market?
It depends if she wants to roil the markets or not, and a certain analyst that deserves it. But I digress on that point because, as Trump said, he was right about everything, and as his analyst says, he was wrong about everything. But I digress again on that point. But I will state for the record, Walt, I do believe it is only a matter of time until Waymo becomes profitable. And I will give you a prediction here. within 24 months, Waymo will be profitable on a per vehicle basis.
Yeah, I think that's probably a bit of a stretch. Maybe their incremental profit in terms of the new cars that'll be less expensive, but yeah, 24 months. I'll take the strong over on that, but that's fine. You know, you don't necessarily have to hit profitability. The wireless companies spent years and years and years toiling with EBITDA negative, and then more years after that, free cash flow negative. It takes a little time, but that's fine. There was a tremendous free cash flow pot at the end of that rainbow, as there was for Uber and as there will be for Waymo.
Chatter on X is picking up. Chatter on Reddit's picking up. This week we got unconfirmed photos and text of individuals spotting the Waymo Jaguar, Jag-Hire, any term you want to enter, in Los Feliz, Silver Lake area of LA. Interesting thing about that is small roads, complex driving. I know you're going to ask about highways, but I'm going to ask this. Is the Hollywood Hills unlock coming next, possibly before highways?
That's great stuff, Grayson. I don't, you would probably, I think you were following this closer than I was, but how did it work in Phoenix and San Francisco? Did it start smaller and then, expand like this is expanding? And if so, this is a great data point that you've picked out of Reddit.
The ODD starts, it's much larger when they start, but traditionally starts in a smaller ODD and gradually over time it expands. What we've seen, every market, the market expands faster and faster as they expand.
This is evidence then that they could expand. And I guess the way we'll see that is someone will post it, or we'll have friends of ours in LA. Maybe Harry Campbell will continue to watch it and see if that little circle of service area increases as they get more and more cars there. We're going to need to surface some more of these pictures on Reddit or some of the other social media apps elsewhere in California, just to see if more and more of these cars are showing up on the highways. That's obviously, in terms of investor questions I get, that's a key one. We've talked about that many times as a critical unlock, potential incremental risk for the type of high value ride that Uber is delivering to the airport. So if you got them out there, or autonomators, or whatever I got to come up with a nickname for our listeners. Please send them the pictures. I was going through using my AI and I came up with a couple of names. I had robo-rodders, tassholes, meaning transportation as a service. I don't think our listeners want to be called tassel. How about autonauts? Autonomists? Anyway, for our autonomists out there, send us those pictures that you have of Waymos on highways, and we'll continue to scour social media.
What the heck did you do to come up with these names? Did you just plug in Unhinged and Grok? How did you do this?
I got some good with Taxitrons. How about that? Robo Riders. We need something to Autonomy. I kind of like that one. Anyway, so that's another thing. Submit your name. What do you want to be called as the force out there helping us learn more about the autonomous industry?
I want to learn more. One name that was deleted from this list is Backseat Algorithm. I just had to put that out there. That was deleted from the list, but I think that's hilarious. Chuck Price, I know you're laughing and you're going to call, and I'll tell Walt that you called. So don't worry about that, because I know you're going to make a comment on that one. Well, speaking of things getting deleted, we're texting last night around 7:30. Waymo puts up a tweet, and they deleted it. Because all of a sudden, they can go up a 32% incline. They put out a tweet, they delete it, and today it went live at 3 o'clock. What's going on?
Well, what specifically, if anything, was the edit?
Well, the screenshot was 20 to 32% incline. And then when it went up today at 3 o'clock, it's at 32% incline. Took out the 20% mark.
They got rid of the 20% as kind of the low end of the range. That seems like a weird edit to pull back on. So, or was it the opposite? Did it originally say 32% and then they changed it to 20 to 32? Which way did they edit it?
Originally it was 20 to 32, and then the tweet that went up today at 3 o'clock was just 32%.
I mean, that's just better editing, right? So why bother even saying 20 to 32? Presumably you can actually operate at 0 degrees, right? So I don't know why 20 would be the lower end of where you can operate. So I guess what they're pointing is that you can navigate 32% street. I mean, 32%, there's some of those roads in California, in San Francisco, are already more than 32%. I think I've been on, so that even sounds low. I think they're sandbagging here. What do you think?
I don't know. What I do know, you're causing quite a stir lately. Last week with your Waymo analysis, we've got more listener comments and feedback. I've gotten private text Are you standing by your numbers?
Yes, there is no chance that I'm backing off those calculations, as simplistic as they are. I'm certainly going to add additional layers of complexity to them over the time, and I do appreciate certainly all that feedback. If anything, actually, I feel even stronger about kind of how we went through that math last week, and my belief that people are just overestimating how many cars Waymo is going to need in order to scale. This is kind of like a telco where you initially build out a certain number of cell towers just to deliver basic service. And then as you add more and more customers, you add additional towers and wireless spectrum to add capacity. So that's where the incremental CapEx comes, which is what Waymo will do over time as they get more and more users. And hopefully those things won't be sitting on a lot as we think they are, and they can pace that appropriately for this spike in demand. So it just the comparisons that other people make to Uber and saying like you have to get to Uber's numbers for comparable just doesn't seem right to me. So yeah, I think it was useful for the market to consider that, and we're going to continue to refine that math.
You refine the math. Continue to watch Uber, because Uber's got a new partner coming online. We have big news out of Avride. They're expecting to launch up to 100 Hyundai Ioniq 5 AV robotaxis by the end of the year. It's big.
Wait a minute. End of this year they're launching? So I thought Waymo is not getting their cars, these Hyundais, until later this year, launching in 2026. And now you're telling me Avride is going to get them and launch them first? And like, what does that say about the Waymo Hyundai relationship?
I don't know what it says, but this is in a press release that Avride says since 2019 they've been working hand in hand with Hyundai. But I want to point out I'm unsure because Avride wasn't formed until 2022 when it was spun out of Yandex, which is the Google of Russia. So got a little questions there of when the relationship truly started. The interesting thing for you to know and for our audience to know, those vehicles are going to be in Dallas on the Uber network. Another Uber deal, which goes back to my product consistency. They need to do an AV tier.
What does this mean? Like Waymo is the big dog in the market, are they not?
100%.
Especially in the US. So you're coming into the US market, Hyundai, as your partner. So if you think about it, Hyundai is Waymo's partner. You're coming into the US with another technology partner with your product that Waymo is building on as an integrated product before Waymo launches?
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I assume that Avride is they're just buying these fives and just Ioniq 5s and just, doing basically what Waymo is doing with Zeekr. It's not going to be fully integrated into the product like Waymo is doing.
Fully integrated partnership according to the press release.
I don't know. That's a bit crazy. I don't know. I am surprised to see this. I don't know. So what do you think this, other than that, what do you think this means? I think this is an affront to Waymo. So I just also wonder, like, maybe Waymo is already, generating some other, as I'm sure they will, other partnerships, but this one isn't even really launched. They're not even like cranking out. I mean, I guess with the flip side of it, it's good to have obviously multiple users of whatever platform that you're using. Sure, I get that. That's positive, but to have another autonomous, the company that the company, Waymo size, your company, your meaningfulness, and you're going to trump them in the market. Trump in this case meaning come ahead, not Trump, our Trump. That seems kind of bizarre. Anyway, let's move on. What else? What else do you think this deal means?
It signals to me two things. One, the end emotional, and two, Hyundai is positioning the Ioniq 5 to be the default robotaxi for mass market. That's what it says.
Maybe it will, but it has a steering wheel, so I don't know how something that has a steering wheel becomes the default robotaxi. Sorry.
So then that raises the question, what's next for Hyundai if they are the default robotaxi? Do they do a deal with Nuro? Do they do a deal with Wayve?
Sorry to be so surprised by all this, but like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, if you're gonna do, like, why not do every tech platform? Maybe this is what we've been waiting for in terms of Nuro's new relationship that is hopefully going to happen in the next couple of months. I guess maybe Hyundai's in the lead for that since, they've got Avride on board. So we'll see. I mean, maybe this should put pressure on the U.S. car makers that, again, you're falling behind. But I don't know. Interesting. Very interesting stuff.
Hyundai is becoming an arms dealer. Go cut a deal with everybody. It's the same thing I tell to Daimler Truck and to Volvo Trucks. Go do a deal with everybody. Let them build on your platform.
But why though? Are they cheap enough? But are they cheap enough? At the end of the day, like what's that car going to cost? I want that car down like $20,000. Are they going to give me a $20,000 Ioniq 6, 2, whatever the number is?
5. Don't know, but I would invite the Hyundai executives to come on the podcast and break the numbers down with us.
Yeah, it sounds like this is a company that we need to spend time with.
We do need to spend time with them. And a company that's emerging that I've been fortunate to spend time with in Houston is Bot Auto. They announced plans this week for driver-out commercial autonomous trucking operations from Houston to San Antonio over a 4-month period. And I stress the fact, commercial operations.
Well, I mean, last week I talked about like, okay, yeah, it's important to have things going on in 2025. Hopefully it's not rushed, but clearly, you know, there's a lot of focus on Aurora, as there should be. We're certainly very excited for their launch, but there's other companies out there that are developing technology that are going to have driver out commercial operations. So yeah, I think that's great. And I think emblematic of the market.
It's emblematic of the market. And the other thing is, we talked about on past episodes, Bot Auto doesn't have an OEM deal, which raises the question, do you even need an OEM to do it? Because we talked about kits. There's possibly a path forward to run a commercial autonomous trucking business without an OEM, which then gives the power back to the autonomous trucking developers, because Bot is going to carry it. They're going to operate the service fully integrated. So there's a new model emerging here.
Yeah, I still go back and forth on this. I mean, I'm sensitive to the arguments that I've heard then since we've talked about this in terms of the amount of co-development that has to go on in between the OEMs. So, but I think it's, again, this is like the back and forth, right? So if Bot Auto gets out there with driver out, you know, whatever, soon, and they didn't have this same integration, then that calls into question those that think that this is some, you know, unnecessary part of it. I still believe that, I don't know if I believe, but my bias is that when you're getting to scale, whatever scale means in the world of trucking, that there's going to have to be some level of, you know, code engineering with the with these trucking companies, the OEMs. But, you know, I'm definitely, I don't know. I'm like 50-50. Where do you come out on this?
Leverage. Part T or Robert Brown and Shady Hove, they pulled this off successfully. Then they get the leverage and the power in a negotiation where you don't need the OEM on day one. You're going to need the OEM on day two, but the power dynamics change with this. That's where I really truly think this is going, because the OEMs would play these games, and those games are not going to be able to be played, because when they pull this off, everything changes.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I guess that speaks to what's really when we talk about a lot of this stuff. What really matters is whose car is going to be out there with driver out, with customers first. And a lot of the financial, you know, incremental investments come to them. Maybe some of these partnerships come to them. It's so, you know, if someone's trying to try and hold you back by saying they have to integrate with you, then, you know, fuck them, and, you know, go and do it on your own and prove it out that way. You know, BlackBerry effectively did that when they were trying to do their mail service. They just said, fine, I'll just go build up my own device, and had a good run of it for a while until the iPhone killed them.
Because they relied on BlackBerry Messenger. And guess what? The same thing's going to happen to Bloomberg, because they rely on that messenger. People are going to move on at some point. I'm determined that. I don't have a date of that, but I believe that's going to happen. What I do know is that 2025 is shaping up to be the year of autonomous trucking. Bot Auto's going driver out. Aurora's going driver out. With all this positive momentum in the industry, are investors opening up to the opportunity? Is Wall Street opening up the opportunity that there is in autonomous trucking?
Well, one you didn't mention was Kodiak, who's already out there with commercial products. I think investors are open to anything, and I think maybe Uber can be the platform for that, because Uber is partnered in some cases with them, and as they profile it and the impact that it has to their business and starts to build up more of what freight means to them, that can attract greater interest. But I mean, clearly there's investor interest. You know, look at the market cap of Aurora. There's clearly investor interest in the ability to autonomize trucks.
We have the ability to do a lot of things on here. Early days, I think episode 2 or 3, we had Telco Corner, which I thoroughly love. Mm-hmm. But now we got a new corner for you, Walt. International Corner. This week, Alex Kendall, CEO of Wayve, announced that Wayve's expanded to Stuttgart. With this expansion comes your favorite thing, highway testing. In Stuttgart, Mercedes-Benz and Porsche are both based there. Can we potentially see a German OEM deal with this expansion?
In Stuttgart, I think I know this pronunciation. Is it Stuttgart? Yes, Uber needs to get on this partnership with Wayve, primarily because it was one of my beginning of the year predictions that they would get on it. But like that aside, again, this is what gets us excited about this industry. Yes, Waymo's the leader. yes, we're excited to see what Tesla will or won't deliver in California, among other places. But there's a lot of other companies out there and smart people that are developing technology that's on the road. And by the way, Grayson, hat tip to you. Like Alex Kendall, you were interacting with him on Twitter, formerly called Twitter, now X, and him posting you these pictures of him using his product, his own product, on the road at Stuttgart. So I'm looking forward. Always love to get to London. Maybe, Liverpool is advancing, hopefully, in the Champions League and hopefully to win the title. So a good reason to get out to the UK, check out Wayve, and maybe catch Liverpool in another great year.
We need a road trip. Before we get on the road trip,
Yes.
I want to stay in Germany for a moment. If you look at the history of Porsche, the company was basically bankrupt until the Cayenne came around. Could we potentially see the Wayve system go into a Cayenne and a Macan and act as that catalyst? I know they had the Mobileye deal. I know I'm going to get the inbound on it. But there's an opportunity here for a better system to get fully integrated.
No, I don't think the Cayenne is going to be a part of any autonomous vehicle for quite some time. But look, there's a plenty of car companies out there that, again, if Wayve delivers the technology, which they're showing they're doing in Stuttgart, then they should be able to get some partners.
As a former Cayenne owner, I disagree. It'd be a great feature in a Cayenne. So now we're going to my corner. Unforced error. I'm really relishing this, and I'm relishing this. And I got a banger for you this week. We're going to Colorado because we are on the verge of economic destruction in Colorado. There's a bill pending in the House Bill 1122, that would kill jobs at a time when we're on the verge of recession in the U.S. economy. Because what is it going to do? It is going to force a human to sit in an autonomous truck, which effectively will act as a ban. And before I get all the mail, let me give you some economic data on the impact of trucking in Colorado. In 2021, 382 million tons of freight worth nearly $472 billion, that's with a B, not an M, moved through the state. 62% of that cargo originated, terminated, or moved within Colorado. Fast forward, by 2040, freight movement in Colorado is expected to grow by 66 tons to 448 tons annually, while the value of that freight is expected to increase by over 240 billion to 712 billion, according, this is the great part, the source, the Colorado Department of Transportation. Look at the jobs front. 1 in 20 jobs in Colorado is associated with the trucking industry. They ban autonomous trucking. Watch that number soar to 1 in 80. HB 1122 is a job-killing bill that will hurt the state's economy. Colorado needs autonomous trucking to keep up with the freight demand, because if you ban autonomous trucking, you can kiss the trucking industry in your state goodbye. Bye-bye. Choose wisely: economic prosperity or recession. HB 1122 will bring a recession to Colorado.
That was a lot of words, Grayson. So I think to summarize, you're basically saying Colorado is trying to ban trucking, and that's bad. And then you backed it up with all the stats on why it is in fact bad. But I think for our listeners, it's kind of common sense if you're going to try and ban this and the benefit that we see having in the market, But I'm sure they all thank you for those incremental dollars. And yes, that is the unforced error of the week. I think on the Lightshed podcast, we call it a disgrace of the week. That could also qualify as the disgrace of the week.
Or the sad moment of the week. You're putting the interest of special interest above the tax-paying residents of the state of Colorado.
Oh, imagine that.
I imagine a lot of things. And this I'm not imagining. Next week, we're both going to see May Mobility. Outside of that, what do we need to look for in the autonomy market?
I'm also on my way to DC primarily to, find out what's going on in the world of getting your phone and your home connected to a satellite. But, there'll be some in there as well. So it should be a busy travel week for us both. Hopefully some good kind of primary research to come back on the podcast next week.
I'm looking forward to it, and perhaps I will end with this today. Beam me up, Walt. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is profitable autonomy. Walt, until next week.